We have back with us today Raphi Rebucas. He is an amazing young man, so much energy, passion for the country, love for California, and just a draw to the American people. He has started a PAC. It's called the Young Leaders PAC. He's a conservative. What are you? How old are you? 13, 14?
13. 13.
13 years old. It's unbelievable. But he's back. He gave us a full interview. You need to check it out. I'm going to put the link below. Check that out. But right now, he's going to give us an update on how the PAC is going, what kind of work they're doing within the state, and just give us a great update. Thank you for coming on the show, Raphi.
Thank you so much for having me, Miss Cruz. It's an honor to be back.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what have you been up to?
Right. So the Young Leaders PAC is in full swing. We have 38 days. Can you believe that? 38, 37 days till the election. And for all of you voters, this election has been called one of the most important elections of our lifetime. It determines whether or not the incumbent representatives in our state and our country are serving us well, or whether we need new leadership.
Right.
I personally believe that we need to keep the House, keep the Senate. And what the Young Leaders PAC is trying to do and continues to do is try to inform the youth about the political atmosphere, encourage their participation, and elect independent legislators to represent us in the state of California and in Washington, D.C. And I think that what you've been seeing in the what you've been seeing in the Senate hearings, in the Senate judiciary hearings, especially when we're trying to confirm another Supreme Court justice, I think that when we look at the Democratic Party, we see that, we need better leadership than that. And I think it's time that we elect citizen representation, citizen leadership, people who understand what it's like to be a citizen, not bought off by special interests, and not working for the people and not working for their donors.
Patriots, not politicians. Patriots,
exactly.
Not politicians.
I like that. Patriots, not politicians. We have some amazing candidates, especially in my district. We have Dr. Kenneth Weston Wright, who's running for United States Representative. He was on your show, and he talked a lot about the McCarran-Ferguson Act.
Yes, absolutely. He went in depth into that act, and we need brave patriots like that aren't afraid to talk, speak, tell the truth, and take action.
That's right. And, he is an ophthalmologist. He's a pediatric eye surgeon. And, he was living an amazing life as a doctor. And he gave a lot of that up to run for Congress, to unseat a politician who has not been serving his people very adequately, has not been working to their interests, Representative Ted Lieu. And we also have Mr. Frank A. Scotto, who's running for the Assembly in California's 66th Assembly District. And again, there's so many patriots out there who are, they're not doing this for an ego. They're actually trying to help, bring the adequate leadership that is necessary for their constituents. And, these people are patriots. They have a love for their country, and they have a love for their state. And they wouldn't be running. They wouldn't be conducting these campaigns and, getting slandered by the media and getting insulted by, different hecklers in their rallies. And, there's a negative and there's a positive side about politics. And I think we need to realize the sacrifice that people are making when they're running for office. And we've been trying to host some events. We've actually today we're going to be sending out a lot of letters to schools, in high schools and middle schools in the South Bay, requesting the school administrations to encourage and promote volunteering, student volunteering, and being more active citizens. And I think that's a really big issue, is that the decisions by which our leaders make today will impact generations.
Right,
and even our voters, when they cast a vote, they're casting a vote that will impact my life, will impact my children's life, and will impact the many generations to come. So that's why I think that our voters and our adults and our leaders, they need to look at who they're voting for, and for our legislators, they need to look at what they're voting for.
Right,
And
absolutely.
we see a lot of impactful measures on our ballot. We see Proposition 6, repeal the gas tax and make sure that any new taxes are approved by the electorate. I am for that. I believe, we need to repeal the gas tax. And, in 3 years, 4 years, I'm going to start to be driving. And, with teenagers in high school and also in college, they follow a strict budget. And I think that
it's where we start. It's where we start our children out understanding real life, the process of personal responsibility and accountability, budgeting, the very basics. And you're very, very correct there in saying that budgeting for these youth and trying to figure out how they're going to get to soccer practice. Most parents probably just give them money, but we have to get back to the basics. We have to get back to the place where these kids realize the value of the dollar and how much their government is actually costing them. And when you do that, you provide them with the ability to really understand the full scope and make good decisions politically, socially, politically, and what have you. And like you said, how do you get to soccer practice? How do you get to your events? How do you get to work? How do you may be in school, you may be a teenager, but working within a budget, it could impact our youth as well. And that's a good point. And I'm glad that you're drawing it into schools, the educators, to the place where they say, we should have our youth more involved and really understanding the balance of these decisions and their future and how these leaders, I don't know if a lot of people we have in office right now are true leaders, but how these leaders are impacting their lives and how they can be a part of the process. That's good. And I'm glad you're doing that. So now...
And I think...
Go ahead.
If I could just add one thing. I think that, the youth don't necessarily realize how many opportunities that are out there to volunteer. How can they affect our elections? And also how much the campaigns around, especially grassroots campaigns, how much they value volunteers, especially young volunteers.
And it's also good experience. You build connections, you network, for those people who you may be volunteering, but perhaps at the point when you can actually work, you'll be able to then get a job, gain employment part-time here and there. It's about relationships as well.
Absolutely.
So is that something that you're trying to do, is encourage volunteerism?
Yeah, we need to make sure that we need to condition our youth to be more active citizens, so that when they are of age to vote, they'll be able to understand and fully realize how many levels of government there are and what they do and how they impact our everyday lives. Because, a lot of people my age don't necessarily care about politics. And I think that is of concern. We need to draw a passion from our youth to the political atmosphere. And we also need to inform them. We can't have the fake news media like CNN, MSNBC, and even adults in our lives indoctrinating us and trying to lure us into liberal ideals. We need to have a balanced platform where conservative youth can express themselves without being
without fear of reprisal. Right. I thought of you not that long ago. We had our local network cover a group of kids who were asked to campaign for a man. His name is Raul Ruiz, very, very staunch Democrat youth.
Absolutely.
Wanting youth to go around and volunteers, but they had no idea when they were interviewing these kids. They had no idea what they were really doing, what they were saying, what they were promoting. And when I listened to what these children, these youth, who are wanting to be a part of a process, wanting to be part of a platform and a group and a movement, when I listened to them, they had no clue what it was that they were working towards. If they did, if they really truly understand the process, who they're supporting, I don't believe they would be doing what they're doing for who they're doing it for. And I'm so glad to hear that you're a conservative. You're working towards expressing to the youth that they can have an outlet. Conservatives can have a voice, even at a young age. They don't have to be afraid, and they can be effective in helping their communities and impacting elections. Because I was saddened, and it was scary to hear how uninformed these youth were. Mm-hmm. So, I applaud you.
Thank you.
What do you need from people? What is it? How is it that our listeners can help you in your vision with the PAC? What kind of involvement do you need?
Right. We need, and it doesn't even have to be directly to my PAC. We need adults to be able to give new perspectives to our youth. We've developed a culture, especially for the youth, and it's even prevalent in the African American community, and
all communities, I would say.
All communities, yeah. We need to start thinking for ourselves. We can't have different people or different groups, different parties trying to indoctrinate us and trying to make us feel a certain way. We need to use our own minds and what we feel is best for the world, for our country, for our communities. So I think that the listeners today need to help encourage the youth and inform them about the political atmosphere. We need both sides, and I think that we're already getting sufficient input from the Democratic Party with CNN and MSNBC, which, we conducted a poll. Almost 60% of students listen and watch CNN and MSNBC, and consider them credible and reliable sources. And you can see when you compare actual unbiased news to such media outlets, you can see the bias in how there are people who will nitpick different parts of the story that they like just to try to indoctrinate their voters and try to turn them around the president of the United States and even the Republican Party as a whole. So what we need to do is we need to have our adults be able to inform the youth. Tell your children, your grandchildren that, this is the most important election. And if they don't get the sufficient exposure to the issues at hand, I think that if we continue to have the mentality and carry the mentality as young citizens of this great country, if we continue to carry the mentality that, we're useless in terms of politics, or even that we don't care about politics, that is extremely detrimental to our country's growth. And I think that listeners ought to share their experience, share their thoughts with the younger generations.
That's wonderful. And yes, and nurture them, grow them. Absolutely. Because I think part of it is knowledge. I have a guest for the special edition earlier on this evening, and he's talking about textbooks and how the material that they're sharing in the schools is not even, historically speaking, accurate, representative. That history is being blurred, that the knowledge is being diluted, and that our children are the ones who, and future generations are the ones who are suffer and going to suffer. And so we have to rectify that. So that's, providing earlier books, not just relying on the schools. We can't rely just on the schools anymore. We need to empower our youth, provide them with the knowledge that they need to be able to make educated decisions. And that means providing them with accurate information and reading sources and nurturing that. Because civics just isn't really a part of our lesson plans anymore in terms of the depth that it requires to become an active and involved and engaged citizen of the United States. So I love that. I love the idea that you're looking for people to engage, especially with their nucleus family, just the people around them, and hopefully they reach out farther. So now you're working with campaigns in terms of the PAC. You're working with campaigns, specifically Kenneth Wright and some others. are you helping any other candidates, or are you just really super focused on just those two, or what are you also doing the community outreach? I mean,
Right. Well, I think those two are the ones where I am working hands-on. And,
right,
and I'm really passionate about those two candidates, as well as repealing the gas tax.
right,
Because,
right.
uh,
Well, naturally so. That impacts so many
right.
people.
Yeah. I think that Dr. Kenneth Wright is, I know him personally. I think he's a wonderful person. He'd make an outstanding representative in Congress, especially, his perspective, being a taxpayer, a hardworking citizen. I think that can give adequate representation to the working families in District 33, especially when the incumbent representative, Ted Lieu, which many people don't necessarily know how what he's been doing, his voting record in Congress. In fact, not a lot of people look up voting records
Right.
at all.
Well,
So
it's
I
not
think that
easily, I mean, you actually have to know where to look to find it.
that's right.
And the resources are nil, and that's one of the reasons why we are doing what we're doing, is because,
Yeah.
Shoot, I'll invite Ted Lieu to come on. Actually, I should do that. I should ask my assistant to have him on. I highly doubt he would come on the show.
And he's refused.
That's what these people do. They just they count on the fact that they're an incumbent. They have loads of money, loads of power, and it's not about the people.
Yes, and he's, even Ted Lieu, he's refused to attend 3 of the town halls and debates that were scheduled with Dr. Kenneth Wright. I think that Ted Lieu ought to attend one of these town halls. There's a town hall on October 6th that I'm going to be attending, and it's run by teens. And,
that's a great opportunity for him to reach the youth.
Right, and Representative Ted Lieu, as far as I know, is I don't think he's showing up. I think he was invited, but he's not showing up. And I think the same with.
Wait, back up there. So Ted Lieu has been. You're pretty sure he's been invited to this event, which is a town hall for youth to expand the minds of the youth and let them be a part of understanding process. And he's decided that that's not a priority.
Yeah, from the Daily Breeze, from what he's said, he never confirmed he was coming. And that he shouldn't be labeled as, I'm not showing up, because he never agreed to it in the first place. And he blames a busy October. He blames, a lot of different things. I'm a busy representative. And, there is being a United States representative is a very you have a lot of hectic schedules, but I think that it is incumbent upon our representatives to also make sure that they spend time talking to their constituents, talking to youth, even if it means not necessarily in their own party. And going back,
I'm sure that the town hall schedulers and the people there, if he were able to conference in and do a video conference. There's so much technology now. You are not in my studio. You are not here with me. You are not sitting next to me side by side like we see on the screen. You're in a completely different area. I've had people come on the show who are in completely different states. We live in a day and age where we can communicate seamlessly.
Absolutely.
For the most part. There's no reason why he can't address the people.
Yes.
That's the way I look at it. And I'm sure they would be flexible if he really 100%. Made it a priority.
Yes. And going back to the candidates that I've been working on.
Yes.
Mr. Frank A. Scotto. He's a former mayor of Torrance, Army veteran. I believe Army veteran, yes. And former council member, small business owner. And, he's actually running more of a pro-Scotto campaign than an anti-Miyasuchi campaign, Al Miyasuchi being his opponent. And, Al Miyasuchi has had to cast a lot of deciding votes for a lot of controversial topics. And I think that, we need, with what Mayor Scotto has done for his community in the city of Torrance, in the South Bay, I think that his leadership is absolutely necessary in the California State Assembly to break the supermajority, because we have a very good chance of winning there. And I believe the same with Dr. Kenneth Wright, and also with the repeal of the gas tax. If we get volunteers out, even youth volunteers. I'd love the youth to come volunteer for the gas tax repeal, especially since it's going to be impacting them within the next few years. So we need, and I don't think that majority of the population understands how much volunteering is necessary to a campaign. Because
Right.
volunteers, contributors, and especially voters are all the elements that make a good campaign, make a victory.
Right.
And I think that it's time that Californians, Americans, needs to understand. And there's a lot of races outside of California. Specifically, one I can think of right now is the Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz
Hmm.
campaign.
Absolutely.
That is probably the most important Senate race in the country, and I
Hmm.
think that
Because
you know
we have a strong constitutional conservative there, and
right,
he's facing some really big heat. And one of the reasons why is because he's a constitutional conservative. He
yes,
stands for those basic principles that our country was founded on. And you're right. Volunteerism is where it's at. He can't, and neither can other candidates do the job that they need to do to get out the vote without those volunteers. And I would like to go further and say volunteering doesn't mean you have to spend 8 hours a day. It can
right,
be a half hour a day. It can be making phone
hmm
calls. Some people have phone banking opportunities. I don't know if Ken Wright does, but
he does,
you can do phone banking sometimes and many times from home.
yes,
And so I believe that if when people have the information to be able to
hmm
understand how they can make an impact, then they can take the action to do so. So
yes,
I'm really glad you're talking about this. So you're saying, volunteer for candidates, help volunteer for repealing the gas tax, engaging the youth, and helping to work on some of these other campaigns outside of California, like Ted Cruz. So now,
right.
what is your involvement in that? Have you met Ted Cruz?
I have not, but that would be an amazing opportunity, wouldn't it be?
It would be. It
Um,
would be. You should send him a tweet. Tell him you want to meet him.
I should.
Yeah, you should because your PAC is such an important role, and has such an important role because it deals with the youth. They are the future.
Yes,
It's very simple. So, I think you might be interested. You might have a good conversation there.
that's right.
So,
Um,
what else? What else do you have to update us with?
Well, we've a lot of us at the Young Leaders PAC, we've been, working hard trying to get those candidates elected, trying to
Yes,
bring sensible, common sense leadership to
love it.
Sacramento and to Washington D.C. And right now, we're trying to work on social media ads.
Good.
It's a very important thing, especially when we're trying to outreach to the youth, because the youth, we spend a large percentage of our day on social media, on our screens, on the phone, and just to get our message to inform the youth using a platform that the youth uses quite often. I
Hmm.
don't think that when we're advocating for the youth, I don't think that something like a television ad would work as good as a social media ad, because if we target adolescents and early young voters, and we inform them about what is actually happening, we give them another outlet to read and see the news from a different perspective, from a conservative or even an unbiased perspective. I love unbiased news, to be honest,
I
where
mean,
you know
truth, fact, there's nothing better than that. I mean, really, I think conservatism, people have a very, very skewed view of what that really is. And
yes,
I think that if people really get down to the definition of what the word conservative is and understand it, they can then go back and realize that, it's not just about value systems, it's also about the basics, getting back to the basics, traditional and fundamental value systems, and truth, facts are vital. And
right,
it's we don't you don't need to pervert anything. You don't have to manipulate anything to get your message across. That's what the Democrats do.
right.
You don't have to just share the truth with the youth and let them decide and get involved. I love that. I love that.
Share the truth with the youth. That's an
Ah!
amazing slogan.
You can take that and run with it. You can quote me
right.
if you want, but
Okay.
take it and run with it because it is true. It's true. You know what? And I think that youth today, it's harder to fool them. Okay, they have a lot of information, disinformation at the fingertips, but they have a lot of information, right? So
Right.
I think they can see through a lot of the baloney.
Yeah.
A lot of the baloney. So yeah, truth for the youth. Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, Raphi, I want to thank you again for being on the Erin Cruz Show. Could you please give your website again and make sure that people are connected? Time, talent, treasure.
Sure. So my name is Raphael F. Rebucas. You can call me Raphi. I'm 13 years old, and I'm the founder of the Young Leaders Political Action Committee. You can find us on our online presence at www.rebucas.com. That's REBUCAS.com. And we've been working a lot to try to inform the youth and encourage their participation, but also working to elect legislators with common sense and who can represent their citizens adequately. And I really hope that you can get involved, volunteer for our endorsed candidates, donate if you can. You know, political action committees run on contributions from citizens like you all, like the listeners of the Erin Cruz Show. Thank you so much once again, Ms. Cruz, for allowing me the opportunity to be on the show.
Absolutely. And one more thing we need from you. What is your Twitter handle? Do you have one?
I don't have a Twitter.
Are you on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram.
What is your Instagram?
My Instagram is at President Raphi. That's President RAPHI.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. I want to make sure to plug people in with you so that way they can help promote what information you're providing about the PAC and share your message. So it's
Definitely.
wonderful. Thank you again. God bless you. And touch base with us, all right? You got 35 days?
37.
37?
30, I believe so.
We'll do it.
We'll do it. Thank you so much.
Take care.
To hear more and to learn more on how you can make an impact or about the Erin Cruz Show, visit us online at erincruz.com. That's ERINCRUZ.com.